everybody. I got some requests on doing a sewing room tour. I'm not going to do that whole video at once because there's just too much to share. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share with you today what machines I use, what brand, what style, what make and model. My number one favorite machine, which is my Serger. It's a Serger Pro Finish 14CG754. I prefer Serger products just because I can interchange their feet. I got a request just the other day on Serger and how to thread it, like some basic tips. The machine is intimidating because, one, if you're used to your regular sewing machine, you're used to it kind of sounding a certain way with a certain type of force, and you're comfortable with it. With a Serger, it's like on steroids, so it's like really fast, really loud, and really intimidating as it's pulling the fabric and the blade, and you're like nervous. You have to get over that part, and then you will fall in love with your Serger. That is the number one thing that I had to learn. So today I'm going to go ahead and share with you some tips on how I thread the machine, change the thread, and some settings, and some little things I did to make my experience easier. And I hope you enjoy, and I hope this is helpful. Another tip, if you want a Serger and you don't have one, or any machine, and the people around you know how much you love to sew and you are eyeballing a machine and it's really just not in your budget, you can request gift cards from whatever store sells the machine you're eyeballing. Gift cards. Just request gift cards from that particular store. That way, Mother's Day, birthdays, any day that you can get a gift, you just collect all these gift cards, and when you're ready, it'll either cost you very little out of your pocket or almost nothing to get the machine, and it's like it's free. And everyone knows that you really want this machine, and then you'll get it, and that'll be your present. Why not just convince everyone around you that you have to have this machine? Then you get gift cards, add them all up, and that should be the purchase price of the machine. Okay, this is my Serger Pro Finish. We're going to go through how the machine is easily threaded. The upper looper is mighty close, but it should not hit anything. None of the parts should be banging each other. In the machine, this particular machine is quite loud, and it vibrates a lot. But try not to be intimidated because it's a great machine. If you notice, when you have the needles that are in the machine, I think some machines have come already preloaded with needles, you'll notice that the needles are uneven. That is normal. I freaked out the first time because I thought that the needles were supposed to be flush with each other or even, and they're not. They're actually supposed to be uneven, like the A needle sticks down a little further than the B needle, and that is completely normal. Okay, I'm going to hold this so I can kind of go back and forth really quick. One of the first things that I realized is that I needed to learn the machine. And by doing that, watching videos and stuff, I decided to go ahead. This is my machine, so I'm not going to sell it. I might as well. I took a Sharpie, a real fine Sharpie, and you can't really see, but I marked rolled here, so I know this is a rolled hem, and actually that's the regular edge. So for the settings, so I could remember which way the button goes. Another thing I did was I went ahead and I marked B needle, A needle, upper and lower, and by me touching it, it's kind of rubbed off, but that helped me tremendously in figuring out what settings when I refer to the book that I need, or if I watched a video, the settings on my machine. I also went ahead and wrote fine, which is at the bottom. So if I turn it all the way to F, the F meant fine, which basically is the width of your stitch. Like if you want a wide serge or like a rolled hem would be between 2 and fine. I also went ahead, and you can't see it, I wrote it on here twice. I wrote at the bottom of this particular machine, ruffle. And that setting, if I have it all the way down, it pulls knit fabric where you'll have that ruffle or lettuce edge. And if you're sewing something, some clothing, you don't want that setting. You actually, my basic setting is not in the middle, but it's one up. That's usually where I keep for my general sewing needs. And I usually keep this on like a little click under a 3. So mark your machine. It's your machine. And I also took, I'm a 3M junkie with the 3M wall hook. And I just put a little pair of scissors that came with it on the front of the machine because, as you know, you're always grabbing for scissors to cut tails off. Always make sure I oil this part, especially if your machine is new. I drop oil right in on this because this goes up and down. You want to make sure that slides right through there. And also I oil right in here and right here, and it gets dusty and there's just really nothing you can do. You just keep it clean. There's a debate on whether or not to use spray air or not because it will push more dust into the machine, deeper into the machine, and it's really not good. So just to use a brush, but there's really, unless you take your time and really spend an hour or two cleaning it, it's normal for it to kind of look like this. Alright, let me reattach this to the stand and we'll go ahead and rethread the machine. Okay, my next project calls for red thread. So right now I already have white thread loaded into the machine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, when you first start, always turn the dial to 0 all the way across so there's 0 tension on any of these dials. And what happens is I can easily pull the threads through. Okay, make sure that your blade is in an up position. They tell you to turn off the machine for safety, and until you get used to it you should do that at all times. But for the sake of this video I'm going to leave the light on and I can show you how I do this. So I set the ones I don't want anymore off. I put the new threads on. I snip. I can set these aside. I have my tail from my white thread that's still in the machine. And I take my red thread and I leave about an inch tail, and then I tie it in a knot. Make sure the knot is tight, and then from the knot I leave about 2, maybe 3 inches tail. Okay, I don't clip it right at the knot. Now that the knots are tied, in the front of the machine, the knots are not going to go through the needle. So I hold on to my tail and I leave them in this loop, but I pull them slowly out of the needle. You know? So now there's no thread in the needle, but they're still connected all the way through the machine. I hold on to the threads and pulling forward, I pulled them all the way through. Just 2 at a time. And I don't have to worry about rethreading. and then I clip a long enough tail to start a new chain. That takes care of the A and B needle. Now we need to do the upper and lower looper. I hold on to the long tails that I made, and for the upper and lower, I turn the machine to the side and I pull the thread back. And now I have a red thread. And I leave a long tail. I leave these threads to the back from the upper and lower looper. I check just visually to make sure that nothing jumped out of the loops that it's supposed to be in, that everything is where it's supposed to be. Now I have these two threads. So these are the two threads that are going to go in the A and B needle. So I wet just a little bit the threads, and then I cut them. I place one to the side, and then this is why I love these tweezers, because I can get really precise, and wetting the thread sometimes a little bit, you can see, and it slides right through. And then these tweezers wrap around the back of the needle, and then I push it, take my finger and pull it. And then I do the same with the other needle. Now, everything, all the threads should be up under this portion of the presser foot. But you need to make a small chain, or what they would call a tail. So to test it, I go really slow to make sure nothing hits. Remember, before you make your tail, to put your settings back to where you think they should be. Because now that causes tension on the thread, which is what you want. We only loosen these so we could pull the thread through. Once we rethread it, we need to correct the tensions again, only up here. This is the only thing that you really needed to change. So now that everything is threaded, I'm going to make a small tail. You don't want to pull. You just want to guide this. And the presser foot is up. And this is the only time I really have the presser foot up. Now you should be able to make a tail. Like I said, you don't want to just let it go because it'll bunch up. But just enough where you help guiding it to the back. And now you have your chain tail. You want to always make sure that your chain is up under this part of your presser foot when you lower it. Make sure it's all in one chain and make sure it's up under that portion. We're going to lower our blade, which will only lower if you're in the up position. And then we're going to close the front. One little tip that I'm going to share with you that's commonly overlooked in advice is you don't need to raise and lower the presser foot every time you get ready to serge. You'll see people do this. And basically what it is you just want to get the fabric just where it's catching at the blade. This way you don't have to worry about lifting and lowering and the threads getting caught in the feet. Now you're going to start, and it's going to seem very loud and very powerful. Don't be afraid. Use a lot of test fabric. You can go really slow, which I suggest at first. Then you can look at your serge and see, I can see that I need to adjust my settings a little bit, but for the most part, everything seems to be running smoothly. I'm going to adjust my settings a little bit. Then you always want to make sure you leave a tail at the end of your garment and a tail at the end of the machine for your next piece. Let's say we're serging this pocket closed. I'm going to leave a tail at first until you get used to it. All you have to really do at the end of that tail, so you don't have to worry about tying off your other tails, press your foot down. Now, I can cut this. And now I have my serged pocket. I'm going to turn it inside out, press it, and then stitch it, top stitch it. But this way I don't have to worry about tying off my tails because they're locked into each other. It will take some practice. Not much. Cool beans. Until next time. Boom, chicka, boom. Yeah. Boom, boom. Ugh.